Welcome to Prose and Cons, a podcast by writers for writers, brought to you by Precipice Fiction. Precipice Fiction would like to acknowledge the people of the Eora and Durag nations as the original custodians and storytellers of the land this podcast was created on.
Welcome to this new episode of Prose and Cons. We are a podcast by emerging writers for emerging writers, and sometimes we feel like prose and sometimes we feel like cons. I'm Ali Burnham, and recently we've been kind of jabbed in the ribs to perhaps talk a little bit more about ourselves at the start of the episode, so we're not just like, who are these people, why are they here? So for me, I'm a screenwriter. I have a few film credits in both TV, feature film, and I've also been stepping a bit sideways into the publishing world a little bit. For the past couple of years, I work at a non-for-profit publisher that's also a literature development organization. It's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially we run writing workshops for all ages is the simplest thing I can do. And simplest way I can sum it up, and we help people to publication. So that's why I like talking about all things writing from all sides. And joining me today is Matan Elul.
Hello, hello.
I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, okay. I'm an English teacher. That's the gist of it. But I'm also a student of English literature at the same time at the university. I'm a writer and I'm a freelance editor. I mostly like to write sci-fi and horror, and that's the sort of stuff I've published, and you can find them online. That's it.
Exciting. And also, Matan's just a really great guy, so we love having him here.
Aww.
Yes, can confirm.
By contrast, Alex Eldridge is also here.
Shots fired.
Fair enough. Yes, I am a writer. I've been doing it, I guess, taking it seriously is the way I like to think of it, for maybe 6 years or so now. But just recently, I have been I have published my own book of short stories called Golden Hour, which was nice. So I sort of self-published that, and that was a great way to discover that whole route of things. And then much more recently, I've also published some stories and things for Penthouse Australia. And more recently, I got published by The Big Issue, which feels like the first real validation.
It's a big deal. There were some big names in that
publish.
Anthology.
Yeah, I mean, it was just
issue.
pretty cool seeing myself next to Zoya and Trent and stuff there.
I would say those were a few hundred validations, if we're being... Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I don't want to. I don't know. I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but let's say the slush pile was pretty big in that one, so I'm pretty happy about that credit. But seriously, it's getting that sort of thumbs up externally really gives you a lot of confidence to kind of be in the room. So I don't know. It's been a bit of an ego boost for me, but it's also the people are saying yes, this is what you're doing is good. So that's
which is always nice. And
Absolutely.
sorry for the cheap shot. I kind of set it up, so I decided to dunk on my own setup. It was too good.
It's fine. It's all in good fun. So
all right. So to introduce what we'll be talking about today, I pitched this episode because I rant about it quite naturally, and it's a rant I have down at this point that it was let's turn it into an episode of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And what that rant is I had the misfortune of watching the Book of Boba Fett on Disney Plus, and look, it wasn't amazing. And it's really easy to take a cheap shot. We could just sit around and complain about all the things we didn't like about it. There's many of those videos on YouTube. But I thought perhaps what a more constructive way of framing it is let's try and hone in on potentially some of the writing pitfalls the show specifically made. And for all the budding perhaps show writers or long form writers out there, here's some basic 101 what not to do's we can discuss. And maybe at the end of this podcast, you'll walk away with some insights being it's actually not that hard to avoid those really glaring basic mistakes. And you'll be tooled up to go away and write your own TV show, because in a world where the Book of Boba Fett exists, I think we should leave hopeful that anything can exist.
The bar is low, people.
The
bar is in hell, as my girlfriend says.
I just think that by the end of this episode, Disney is either going to sue us or offer us a job, and I'm looking forward to see which one.
No,
Way, free
again,
press, baby.
I'm going to keep the spirit of this constructive rather than just diving in and attacking it. But before we get into the meat of it, we'll do our usual thing of Matan, let me know what you've been reading, watching, consuming lately.
Man, I hate using this excuse, but I've been editing a lot, so I've been reading a lot of stuff. So I'm still reading. Oh my God. If you're like a constant listener of this podcast, you must be thinking, is he still reading Hilary Mantel's third Wolf Hall book? Are you serious? You call yourself a reader? It's been months. Well, it has been. Well, in my defense, I'm chugging through like 50 pages a day of proofreading and copy editing. And sometimes it's fun, like I can't really say the name, but right now I'm working on a manuscript that is really great. It's
nice like, when they're great. Yeah.
It's so nice when you read something like, man, I would pay for this. Like, I'm reading this for free, but I would pay for this. So that's my reading.
Satisfying.
Nice. And how about you, Alex?
Yeah, I have started reading. I've had a bit of an epiphany sort of moment with the book that I've been reading. So to give just a little bit of context, after the sort of magazine came out, I went through and started reading through all the other people's published works in it, and I found one girl, Michelle C. Tho, who wrote a really great story about working in a cafe, and sort of it goes on from there. It's a great story. But I looked at one of her things, and an article she'd written was like, why is there no video game representation in literature? And I was like, that's a good question. And the novel she recommended for that was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. And yes. I, for some reason, went out of my way to find this book because I'm like, this appeals to me. This is in my wheelhouse. And I started reading it, and holy crap, that's a book. It's a hell of a book. Just a great story. And so that's made me sort of rethink what I've been writing and the way that I operate and the format that I like to write in, because there's a lot of things it does that I really admire. So yeah, for anyone who's just looking for it, it's about basically two kids who grow up to become video game designers together, and all the drama that might entail in any creative endeavor. But yeah, so just a really good, well told story that will appeal to anyone, whether they have an interest in video games or not.
Awesome. Nice. Yeah, I've seen that one do the festival rounds and get some recognition at festivals.
Yeah. Well deserved, I think. It's a very good book.
Cool. And for myself, I don't think I've actually mentioned this in a podcast yet. But I've been across maybe I did. Stop me now and we'll edit out if I did. Have I talked about Brandon Sanderson's 3 audiobooks?
No. Brandon Sanderson? So. What?
Yeah. Because it's been a while since I've been on an episode, so I'm trying to think what I've actually mentioned. So, all right. What I've been reading recently is Brandon Sanderson last year broke the internet, quotation marks, by announcing he, during COVID, wrote 4 extra secret novels. And I kind of love that by secret, he was kind of keeping them secret from his publishers and stuff and ages, because if they knew he was working on other stuff, they'll be like, why aren't you writing on the thing? Like, you're being paid to pay. So, but just for his own fun and because he can't be stopped, he wrote 4 whole novels.
Man literally cannot be stopped.
Just a madman.
An indomitable force of nature.
And he's been releasing them. There was a Kickstarter campaign that was the biggest Kickstarter campaign in history. And I threw some dollars at that because I wanted the early access for the audiobooks. It wasn't a lot of dollars. I feel like I paid $30 or something. But yeah, essentially about 3 weeks early, I get access to the audiobooks. They drop before then they go wide with distribution. And the 3 books that have come out this year, Tress of the Emerald Sea was the first one he dropped, which is a Cosmere novel. Then was, I love this title, The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. which is not a Cosmere book. It's just
Frugally.
a standalone. Frugal, yep, the Frugal Wizard's Handbook. And then the most recent one is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, which is Cosmere, which just had me tearing out my hair and screaming, trying to work out where on the Cosmere timeline it is. Because at first I thought it was like a prequel, and then I'm like, no, it's actually after the next Stormlight book to come. And I'm like, my brain's exploding. I can't handle this. Yes, Matan.
Ali, I gotta ask you. I'm gonna keep it short, but as the resident Sanderson historian of our group, you've just read 3 books of his that have, I guess, been untouched by his editors.
Yeah,
Does it feel worse for it?
Yeah, he must have. I think he does have a pipeline in that, but I think you're right. These wouldn't have been as rigorously edited as the Stormlight books, his big flagship books. These are stuff he probably would have had a very small beta reading pool compared to his usual beta readers. Look, they're a lot of fun, and they probably surprised me how much fun I had reading, especially Frugal Wizards. Because a part of me wonders that I'm like, do I just enjoy all his books because they're Cosmere and I actually get a kick out of how all interconnected they are more than I actually get a kick out of, say, the writing. But then he puts out the Frugal Wizard's Handbook, which is not connected to anything. And it was still just a really fun, rompy book with characters I cared about as a standalone. And I'm like, the bastard's done it again. Like, these aren't world-changing books. They're not life-changing books, but they're fun and they're better than some other crap that I'm forced to read. So that's a high glowing report. And look, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is a big risk for him. I kind of get why maybe it was, if he had pitched it to his agent or publisher, they'd be like, this is a bit off brand for you. What are you doing? Because it's basically a romance. And I love how he's just kind of gone, you can't stop me. I'm writing a romance. He did.
And people will pay for it, damn it.
People, yeah. So, good on him. He's just doing whatever he wants at this point, and the content he's putting out is still like enjoyable. Like, I'll be the first to call him out. Don't worry. When the quality slips, I'll be like, it's crap. Don't read his stuff. But for now, it's still fun, rompy, if that's your thing. Speaking of crap quality and calling it out, let's get to today's topic. So I'll pose the question. Matan and Alex, have either of you watched the 7-episode series that is the Book of Boba Fett?
Not the 7. I think I watched 2 episodes, and at the time, I don't recall being like offended. I don't recall it being terrible, but I was like, obviously I didn't like it that much because I didn't watch anymore. So it
stopped you at the 2 mark, fizzled out. Fair enough. And you, Matan?
Look, this is going to sound like an apology, but I haven't. But I'm a huge Star Wars guy. I watched all the movies. I like them. I watch a lot of other content. This one I haven't. Partially because the reviews made me feel like I shouldn't waste my time.
That's an excellent takeaway. May I ask then, on from that, have either of you watched The Mandalorian, or how far into The Mandalorian are you?
I've seen most of season 1 and I was pretty impressed with it. Yeah.
Seen most of season 1 of The Mandalorian. Okay. And you,
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say about 30-40% into season 1.
Okay. That's all right. I'm going to make this work with limited TV show universe knowledge. That's all right. So for those listening, depending on where you fall on the Star Wars knowledge spectrum, because it's a massive spectrum and it is growing every day, there's the movie universes, the 3, 3, and 3. Got them in 3 batches. After being sold to Disney is when we got the very latest 3, 7, 8, 9. With the Rey and the Kylo Ren era, and the blue milk. But what Disney's been doing since then is expanding into live action television. There is a really awesome animated television in Rebels and the Clone Wars. But what we're discussing today doesn't go too deeply into that lore, except for, actually, no, I take that back. I will be circling back to some Clone Wars stuff. But that's okay. You don't need to know that stuff for today's discussion. I'm just going to position Boba Fett for you all. That Boba Fett was a character introduced in the original 3.
Second.
Yep. Your classic
episode 5, I guess.
The Luke arc. The
so
classic
confusing.
arc. I'll just call it the classic arc, the Luke arc.
I remember having a Boba Fett, not a Boba Fett like toy itself, but like a Matchbox version of the ship, and I always
Brilliant.
thought it was a
What?
horribly ugly ship. Like
Yes,
as a
but
child,
it's
I was like, this is a hideously
it's
designed
famous
ship.
for being well loved because it's such a weird ship.
Yeah, it's a strange looking ship, but yeah, that's my contribution.
So Boba Fett is a mercenary. He's hired to kill people. He's very competent. Is the original setup for his character. There's not a lot to him. He's famous for having 4 lines in like the original trilogy, and yet his design was so cool, and there were a lot of toys made about him, and he had a cool, weird ship that everyone's like, oh, Boba Fett, what a badass, and just became this weird cult figure a little bit.
I just gotta say, standards have been low back then. I think the only reason people were impressed is because every other stormtrooper was white, and
then
suddenly you got a green one with a
one.
jetpack. It's like, oh my god, this
Yeah.
one is green. Yeah, these people were starved for color. That's why they were impressed.
Yeah, in more ways than one, as we came to find.
Da-boom-tsh. Yeah. And then Boba Fett was explored a little bit more in the next trilogy that came, which was the prequel trilogy. We got to learn a little bit about where the clones came from. Jango Fett, Boba Fett was his son, so he's got clone DNA. He was trained. He's kind of got clone training. Like, you know, we started to get a bit more insight into where he came from, fleshed him out. And then even in the Clone Wars, we get some adventures with young Boba Fett running around with some mercenaries in the universe. And so not the universe. I got to keep saying galaxy. Universe is incorrect. The galaxy. So that's Boba Fett, and he became well loved enough that it was speculated for a long time. Wouldn't it be really cool to get a Boba Fett backstory or something, or a TV show?
Yeah, even as a kid, like he was a presence. Like if as a kid who'd watched Star Wars, he wasn't just some side character. Like he was a thing, because there's that like bit where I think he chases Luke in Empire, and like he was, and then of course there's the bit on Jabba's little barge on number 3 where he's there and he gets thrown into the Sarlacc pit,
and then he's thrown into the pit.
He was a known quantity. He was this thing that was in Star Wars, and everyone knew who he was, but he didn't have that big a role. He was just like almost rule of cool. He was just kind of there, and you were like, yeah, it's Boba, you know,
a bit like Nick Fury in the Marvel universe until recently.
Yeah, that's not a bad.
Like he's there, he's got an eye patch. We know who he is, but he doesn't really do much, does he?
Doesn't have to do much though. He was well loved for the small part he played. Which brings us to the Book of Boba Fett, the TV show. 7 episodes. So I'm going to put down the context of the show for a second. And I just want to talk to the two of you as writers, and say you've been given a creative challenge to write a TV show. I'm going to pose questions to you guys, and I just want you to quick fire answers. Don't overthink them. Just whatever your first instinct is, how you would answer these questions. So you've been brought onto a creative project, and you're being given an existing character. And there's kind of this idea of taking this character on a journey, potentially away from what they're known for. That could be cool. That could be exciting. A journey to change their core beliefs, and you have a 7-episode arc to do this. What are your first instincts when you want to approach a creative challenge like that?
So I want to change their core beliefs.
Yeah,
okay.
You want to take them on a fairly dramatic an arc that'll change what they believe.
So just to somewhat shatter the artifice of this question being totally off the cuff, Ali has in fact sent them to us previously, and I did actually come up with a fairly like an idea of something.
I love it. No, it's good.
But I thought a fun one would be like taking the Greek god Zeus and being like, okay, he's like a womanizer, he's like famously tempestuous, he's a bit of a jerk. Having him being somehow like angering, I don't know, like
a shy
chaos.
Virgin.
Yeah, no, but basically, yeah, exactly. No, like transforming him into the body of a woman and then sending him down to Earth and having him deal with that. Like,
no, he would just, I don't think
Like-
that would phase him at all. Like, he
Okay,
would just, let's
like
go.
losing his powers. So he's just a human woman going from that, and like he's still got the
And he's married.
I'm the master of my domain sort of thing. But just seeing him deal with that and being like, oh, actually, maybe if I treat people in this way, it's not great. I don't feel great about how this interaction. Like, I just thought that would be a fun.
I
sort
love
of
that.
thing.
So what you've pitched is a really dramatic inciting incident. Like, boom, we're taking them out of their previous world. We're giving them a fish out of water story and making them challenge their core beliefs. That's how you would set them up for a big arc change. I love that pitch. Thank you, Alex. What did you have, Matan?
You know, you're gonna hear my example. You're gonna laugh because my example is Thor from the first
Oh,
Thor movie. He
we
loses
literally
his
picked
powers.
The same guy
I
from a
didn't turn-
different eon. That's
And
amazing. That's amazing.
I didn't turn him into a woman, but I did take away his hammer. So maybe that's a metaphor for that. But take away his
Yeah,
hammer.
fair enough.
My point being this, I think Ali said it really well. It's a fish out of water. You take them out of their comfort zone, because their comfort zone, in many ways, has shaped their core beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So once you take out the setting that has shaped their core beliefs, they might be open to something else.
Right.
In Thor's case, he didn't just lose his powers. He's also not a prince anymore. Everybody used to bow to him, to look up to him. Now he's just a nobody. A handsome nobody, but a nobody nonetheless.
All right. So on the back of these two ideas that are resonating, they're good. Do you think it's important to show this moment to the audience?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Okay.
You need to see the before and the after and the event in terms of
Yeah.
Good instincts.
Why?
So, therefore, writing 101, I would speculate that if you're writing a TV show and you have a well-established character known for something, you wouldn't start your series with them already changed, already with a different set of core beliefs. If you have an existing property of a character who's famous for being a badass, perhaps don't start them in a place where they have very little resemblance for what they're known for, who has a general dislike for conflict, wants to negotiate their way out of problems, and kind of just wants people to like him. Might be a weird place to start your series without showing an inciting incident for how they got there. Just a
Do we
little
see it
bit
in
of
a
writing
flashback?
101. Yes, so we will be talking
Yeah.
about flashbacks. This show does utilize them, but there might be a few writing 101 ways and pitfalls to avoid when using flashbacks. But I like that instinct because maybe these writers had a similar instinct. Look, let's do something shocking. Let's have them already at the end of a changed arc.
in
and
media
we'll
res.
flashback.
That's always fun. Yeah.
I'm starting to think it's actually really good that me and Alex haven't seen Boba Fett because our responses are like, they're organic. We
Yes.
truly believe this. We're not
Well,
just
they're-
trying to rip on it.
They're organic, all right.
Wouldn't it be great if we saw that big character dramatic change on screen? Wouldn't that be excellent? No, fantastic. So, moving on to our next question. Why is it important for a character to have a goal?
Okay. I said goals are important because I'm going to read it out because I in fact wrote it down like a homework assignment.
Yep,
I
I love it.
I wrote-
Thank you.
I
wrote it down
intuited
too. Excuse me.
Inherently, it like that, what you would want to write, and just guessed and wrote it down.
Yeah.
Having no
We're
pride.
we're such good students.
I'll give up this. I'll give up this joke at this point. Goals set up character motivations. They give characters something to work towards, and the audience something to root for. Also, active characters tend to be inherently appealing. Now, some examples of characters that I thought of that would be like that would be, let's take it right back, Ash Ketchum. He's got a very clear goal.
He's got a
wants to
great
be the-
goal.
He wants to be the greatest Pokemon master of all
He wants
time.
to
What?
catch them all.
No, Ash is the king of like being distracted by a bunch of
Hang on,
idiots
though.
in Team
Hang
Rocket
on.
uniforms. Sorry.
Well, that's a different problem. It's a fairly nebulous goal though. He's not like, I want to catch all the Pokemon. He's like, I want to catch a bunch of Pokemon, and I want to in the context of the first season, he's like, I want to beat the Indigo League, right?
Mhm.
So it's a very clear goal. He wants to get all the badges,
Yeah.
and he's young, he's brash, he's likable. Yeah, there's that. So that'd be my
Love
my
it.
sort of take.
Nope, it's a very good answer. And
Thank you.
Matan, why is it important for a character to have a goal?
I'm gonna put a massive glowing +1 on what Alex just said. It makes them likable. You thought I'm gonna
Yes.
dump on you, right? You thought I'm gonna dump on you. I didn't. So I do support what you just said. I'll just give I'll just give a different example. I like them bombastic, and I like the goals being on the edge of unreasonable. And I'm actually going to mention the Sanderson book, The Final Empire. It starts with this ragtag of people, with only like 2.5 of them being really competent, saying they're going to overthrow an empire headed by a literal god. And you're just sitting there and you're thinking like, okay, by the end of the book, this is either going to work out or not. And there's something about this inevitable drive towards completion, conflict, or failure that is just so interesting. So I think goals just give momentum to your story more than anything else.
These are all very excellent answers. So we can then agree it would be a shame to not tell your audience what your main character's goal is. Yes.
I love this format.
Yeah.
Say you have 7 episodes and you don't reveal the character's motivation until episode 4. It could be accused of maybe dragging a little bit, not being dynamic, not being as interesting. And as you said, Matan, momentum, it might really suffer from a lack of momentum if you don't do that. I would say a plot can have many mysteries and they're exciting to work out, but potentially your protagonist's goal shouldn't be one of the mysteries you set up to be figured out. I can kind of see maybe in some literary examples where maybe like, oh, what does this person want? And you can like slowly unpick it, but potentially not your Western crime syndicate action story is not quite the place for that character meditation. So I won't completely poo-poo it on it as a potential idea that if your character's motivation is hidden, is a secret, but they got to be fairly active and doing things to make up for the goal being a secret.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's okay if I don't know what you're doing, as long as I feel like you know what you're doing and you're actively pursuing it.
Yeah.
Like if I see a character go from one place to another, he kills a guy, he buries the body, he calls a person, tells him, meet me there, and then he drives a truck, and then he takes a USB from somewhere. I have no clue what he wants, but I trust him. I'm like, yeah, you're on the path to something.
And you want to get there. You want to get there. That's what's going to drive you through.
Yeah,
By
you
contrast,
seem capable. He seems like he like, even though it's elided exactly what he wants to get, he's very clearly working towards something actively. So it's like there's a bit of fog of war there, but it's like, we can see he's moving towards something.
Yeah, competence. We love characters that are competent. We love proactivity and we love competence to make up for lack of goal. It could potentially be argued, though, that Boba Fett in his new characterization is not quite as competent and is not quite as proactive, because as established, this show kicks off with not the Boba Fett we know and love, who is competent and proactive. This is a Boba Fett who is a changed man. We haven't been given the explanation why, and we're not entirely certain what he wants. We know he's on Tatooine. It is established that he's trying to be the new crime lord, but we don't know why. Why does he care about this? Why does he want this? And it takes us 4 episodes to get a vague answer revealed through flashbacks.
Does he at least look happy in those 4 episodes of nothing?
As Carrie Fisher
is he in a good place?
As Carrie Fisher once said, George Lucas mustn't like faces. He doesn't like faces because he keeps putting helmets on everything. So we've got a character that's, his face is hidden a lot. He does a lot of standing around and staring, and he doesn't do a lot of talking. We've got a character who's happy to stand in the corner and let other characters make decisions and talk. And that's kind of weird for a crime boss, and that's it's not proactive and it's not very competent. But leaving that aside, I don't want to get my digs in. We're here to learn how to avoid writing 101 pitfalls. All right. So we have talked about this, so I'm just going to stay it straight out. Is it potentially a strange pacing move to not reveal your protagonist's motivation after 4 hours of content? Yes or no?
Probably. Yeah, given the context you've given, it's probably a weird move and not ideal.
So by the end of this show, just for a little bit of spoilers, we do get his motivation by episode 4, that he wants to be the daimyo. They keep using the word daimyo. We'll just say crime lord.
Like the Japanese word, daimyo?
Yes, they lean really heavy on American accent daimyo every time they say it, and it is very abrasive. But say we get this motivation by episode 4. Great, we finally get it. Episode 7, the arc concludes with him deciding he doesn't want it anymore. He realizes he kind of sucks at it, so he's going to give it up. Which makes you think that
arc there.
Maybe he didn't.
Ash Ketchum should have ended like that. I'm just saying, somewhere in the way. Like, you know what? Pokemon trading
kind of does at the end of the anyway.
Anyway, sorry. Alex,
we'll do it this same episode, but for Pokemon.
Yes.
Next week. What I'm circling back to, the writing 101, if the protagonist doesn't really care, there's no stakes. If your solution to try and save your town, you want to become the daimyo to save this town, but your solution is by the end of episode 7, you've kind of destroyed the town. Yeah. Maybe you didn't really care that strongly to start with. So why should we care? Especially if you ultimately decide you're not very good at the job at the end.
Can I ask, Ali, what is his motivation for becoming that? I haven't seen it. I probably won't see it.
Let's answer that with the flashback question, because this is the next question, and so we'll dive into the flashbacks that reveal his not very satisfying motivation. So have either of you seen flashbacks used well in media? Throw some good examples at me.
Yeah. The ones I've got, I like to think of it as, maybe pretentiously, as parallel storytelling. I like when it's like not even a flashback, but almost just like, this is just another part of the story that we've sequenced in a different way. That's how I like to conceptualize it. One is, the obvious one that comes to mind is Stephen King's It, which is literally two stories told on top of each other, like people, the main characters as children and the main characters as adults going through that. The other one is the book I'm reading right now, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which I referenced, which really is just jumps all around of the timeline of these kids, and also the mother of the male protagonist. And it's just it just feels like it drops in those points at the perfect like denouement of certain sections. So yeah, that's a good example, I think.
Awesome. And Matan, have you seen flashbacks used to great effect?
Let me reach for my Sanderson box. Where was it? Okay, Sanderson, here we are. So I gotta say, I do love flashbacks when they tell me something new. I just want like 5 seconds on bad flashbacks. If your flashback's only purpose is to make me sad or care about something, it can be a line. It doesn't need to be a flashback. Moving on to good flashbacks, you gotta reveal something that I didn't know. And I think Sanderson in The Way of Kings does it really well. In general, in the Stormlight Archives, he does it well. Like Alex said, 2 parallel timelines. So I think where flashbacks can thrive is the gap of knowledge. In The Way of Kings specifically, we have a character who is a prisoner. We have seen that character in a different situation where he's, I believe, a captain of a unit in the army. He's doing very well. And we don't know how he got from that flashback of doing really well in the battlefield to being a prisoner. And the flashbacks move in parallel lines. And we know that eventually the answer is going to be revealed of how did he get to that prisoner situation. And I think that's a good flashback, because if you need to treat your flashback like you would any other page, which means it has to have conflict, tension, mystery. And once you respect your flashbacks, I think they can be excellent. If you just use them to make us care about your character's dead mom, I think that's not the right way to do it.
Thank you so much for saying all that very excellent things.
Just to jump in on that as well, specifically with the parallel timelines, a really fun way to do it that I've seen a lot of media doing is you have an inciting incident that happens, like say someone's mother dies, right, for example, and then you have one side of the story telling the aftermath of that, leading up to something else that's untold, and then the first, let's say the past timeline, working up to that inciting, and that's a really good way of moving the plot forward, which is basically what you just described. Yeah,
which is done well in the Stormlight Archives book 2. Sorry.
By Brandon Sanderson, who gets a regular shout out from us.
Right, now on Amazon, we got an affiliate link.
No, you made a really good point about the parallel timelines I think the Brandon Sanderson with Kaladin, that example in particular, is where like we don't know how we got there. So in theory, we've got a similar Boba Fett thing where like we have no idea why he wants to be the daimyo, why he's here, how did he get from the Sarlacc pit to here. That's what the flashbacks are answering. But the good thing about Kaladin, in both his parallel timelines, he has really clear goals. Both are dramatic, both have conflict. So no matter which timeline we're on, we're having a good time before we know they're eventually going to collide and now answer our questions. I can't quite say that is true of the Book of Boba Fett in either timeline, honestly. But
detecting a theme constantly.
To give you context on what say if the big question at the end of the trilogy with Boba Fett is how did he survive the Sarlacc pit? How did he get out? Episode 1, we get him crawling out of the pit. So it's like, oh, he just crawled back out. That wasn't really a mystery, but that's a starting point. He crawled out. Then he gets beaten up by some Jawas, if I recall correctly, and his armor is stolen. So now he's just walking around in some white pajamas. He walks around in the desert for 40 years, a really long time. A lot of walking in the desert before he runs into some Tusken Raiders. He hangs out with them, finds out they're not that mean. They're kind of nice. He trains with them. He eats their food. It's not a lot of conflict. Doesn't do a lot. So it's constantly cutting back and forth between this fun desert times with the Tusken Raiders and then him being a daimyo for reasons we don't quite know and letting other people make decisions. And eventually we work out in the flashbacks that all his new friends are murdered. And he's a little bit upset.
Good.
Yeah, then they died. And well, before they died, they helped him make a stick. That was cool. He went out into the desert. He sharpened a stick, and then he had a new like space shillelagh, and he brought that back. And then they were all killed, and he was sad. And then by this time, it's episode 4. So that plot I just told you took 4 episodes to tell.
4.
And then he goes, "Look, I don't like a world where my friends died, so I want to try and be a good daimyo." And he says this in episode 4. And if a motivation is a big secret and is going to be a mystery we're building towards, and that's the reveal, I don't know, maybe I invested too much, but it's potentially a little anticlimactic.
So you're telling me the friends you just made climbing out of the Sarlacc pit, you got beaten up by some Jawas, like really? They're like, I don't want to be highness, but they're literally half your size.
Yeah.
And then you go and you make some friends. Like the real problem here to me, because that's not inherently a bad arc, but I think the problem is, and I did actually see this part, the bit where he makes friends with the Tusken Raiders. Like the problem is there's no real epiphany for him. There's no real moment where he's like, oh, I've been living my entire life incorrectly. I've been this merciless bounty hunter who's been trying to hunt people down and get.
He never really gives that up.
But now I see that the way you're living in this I mean, look, the noble savage is a trope unto itself, so we'll just leave that there. But I can see the way that you're living here is maybe an alternative that I can click to. And then he goes away, the people are killed. He's like, oh no, my way of life that I've literally just adopted has been, it's still pretty shaky, but at least you can, there's a thread
It's
there.
something.
Like,
It's something.
Yeah. I feel like there was no capitalization on the changedness of it, because that's the crux right there. That's where you have to be like, this is, this is
you want to. I think what I want to hone in on is, wouldn't it be great to see that on screen? To its own detriment, it kind of gave us all the facts as to why he might become a changed man. Doesn't show us changing. We just then get him talking to a room group of people, being like, now you might all find it strange that I suddenly want to be a good person and a daimyo. And dead Tuscans is the answer.
Doesn't that, Ali, you're like the expert on a writer's room and filmmaking. Doesn't that scream like reshoots and, like test audience reactions affecting a show?
I couldn't begin to try and speculate what went wrong behind the scenes for Boba Fett. It is a truly baffling piece of media, because I tried to watch it with, I want to follow the logic of the decisions they made, and I just couldn't. It feels like it's been written by an alien. So it truly means that there's X, Y, and Z happening behind the scenes. Like you said, maybe producers made a weird call. They were forced to do this. They had this restraint, but we'll never know. Only those things could possibly explain what gave us the hideous Frankenstein abortion that is Boba Fett.
Because the most notorious line from the third Star Wars movie of the latest trilogy is like, somehow Palpatine has returned. And that feels like they made the movie, and then a producer, or maybe the son of a producer, said like, but how did he come back? Oh, fuck. Can you call Oscar Isaac for a quick reshoot for a second, just so we can, put a band-aid on?
It just reminds me of that line in The Simpsons where they're like, and it's obviously taking a jab at like petty fan like call-outs and stuff, but one of the voice of Itchy, I think it is, who's played by a woman. I think it is actually Yardley Smith who's doing it. Anyway, she's like, oh, anytime you see something like that, a wizard did it. It's just it feels like the thing. It's like, it was like, he's a space wizard. He's resurrected himself, right? It's a Christ myth. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't know.
I'm gonna be real quick. I just want to be real quick devil's advocate. Like Alex said, in theory, this can work. But it has to be done with love, passion, patience, and on screen.
On screen is the big one.
On screen is real crucial, and that's the 101 writing technique I want our listeners to walk away with. And circling this back to something constructive, if I was to talk about flashbacks, having them really long and slow, potentially pitfall one to avoid, but not at the expense of needing to develop other things. I think that's potentially what was frustrating about this, is the main timeline still felt underdeveloped, and yet we're cutting to this other thing that is even less developed. There's a lot of argument that if it had stuck to a singular linear timeline and developed the whole thing, could have had some engaging material. Almost to its own detriment, it did this jumping back and forth between the timelines, and neither stuck. It simply interrupted the flow, didn't necessarily add new information, as both of you said was really crucial. And a lesson I learned quite recently from my own writing to justify the leap between two, say, linear timelines is to hook it into an emotional reason to do the jump. So the emotional resonance makes sense, that the flow of the audience's emotional connection to the story isn't interrupted, even if the timeline is and the setting is. But what Boba Fett gave us is, every time Boba Fett took a nap in his bath, we would flash back to the Tusken Raiders, and one was just not in conversation with the other. We didn't get an emotional or a logical kick as to why we were jumping back and forth.
Well, that's another thing that I've just to round this out before you go on, because I know you have a lot more material to cover. But one thing I realized recently reading this book is that a really satisfying way to do a flashback is you'd think would be to leave something on a cliffhanger. That sort of makes sense, and you can certainly do that. It's a little hokey, I think, but a really satisfying way to introduce a flashback is to tie off a section. So it feels like it comes to its natural conclusion. Two characters have been building to this conflict or something. The conflict occurs, and then someone slams the door and they walk out. And that feels like the end of a scene. It feels like the end of a segment. That is then a great time to do a little palate cleanser and go into a flashback or something that's not immediately related, because it feels like the two things, there's a break, and you can then move on into something that's totally different.
Love it. I wish I had seen that in the Book of Boba Fett. All right. And a quick fire question, not to overthink it. Why are character flaws important? Go, Matan.
Character flaws. Yeah, okay. Character flaws. Okay. First of all, I'm just going to say perfect is hard to believe. When we see something that is without flaw, we usually think it's either boring or just unbelievable. So on the most fundamental level, I think you need flaws in your characters to make them feel like real people. Now, on a less fundamental level, flaws are fun. They're entertaining. Don't look at them as a bad thing, like, oh, what if they don't like my alcoholic character? No, they're probably going to like him more. And if I'm going to give an example that kind of sucks. It's like when someone goes to a job interview and they ask him, what's your flaw? And they say, oh, I'm too humble. But that's the one I'm going to use. I work too hard. I'm going to give Batman as my example. Batman's flaw is that it's the classic, I work too hard. Batman's flaw is that he doesn't kill, right? Oh, he's not a murderer. But that is a flaw, because his refusal to kill has created this perfect storm where 12 supervillains have terrorized the same city for decades. Whereas if you put the Joker in a fight with Goku or Vegeta, you see him only once, right? And then we move on to the next guy. With Batman, the guy sticks around forever. So that's an interesting flaw, because the one thing that he doesn't do is probably the thing that he should do.
Yeah, and you've hit on something really good that I wanted to actually expand on. So a flaw is important because it makes someone relatable to us, but also basically if you're able to tie it into almost the meta narrative of how things work, it serves to shape the plot in interesting ways. Now, the example I would like to use would be Katniss from the Hunger Games, and I'm referring to the books, not so much the movies. I do like the movies, but I think the books are just much better.
Katniss doesn't have flaws. No, I'm joking.
She does, though. She does. Her fatal flaw is her own insecurity, right? And what this creates is a sense of first, an unreliable narrator, which is, we have a whole other podcast on that, so you can check that out if you want. But it creates an unreliable narrator, which means that we don't really know where in reality she's actually sitting, how close to reality it is that she's perceiving. But secondarily, it creates these flashpoints where she will make an error of judgment in mistrusting someone a lot of the time. Whereas if she had just trusted that it was all fine, things would be great. But because she doesn't, because she is like, no, I have to do this. I have to take this into my own hands. And she's got that sense of like, no, I can't trust anyone else, so I have to save myself. She kind of bucks things up a bunch for herself. See the end of the second book, where she basically just blows up, it literally blows up the whole arena, which could have been avoided very easily. In fairness, she's not clued into all the information, which she should have. But yeah, that sense of insecurity then balloons out to this bigger plot, flashpoint, as I said.
Fantastic. Thank you both of you for that wisdom. I think we can all agree then it would be a poor decision to write 7 episodes and not give your main character flaws. Great. Moving on. You've been tasked with writing a crime boss character who has a well-loved backstory as a mercenary, someone who has killed people ruthlessly for money. Not just any character. This is your protagonist. What traits might you give them to help service your high-stakes plot? Quickfire, what are some good character traits for this character?
I'm gonna sound like a cliche.
Give it to me. First instincts.
I'm gonna make him cold, calculated, and hardened. But for the flaw, I would have him have a soft spot that would be linked to an outsider who is not part of this world.
Ooh. I love it. I'm already intrigued. Drama. What about you, Alex?
Yeah.
I think the first thing I'd do is really establish his relationship to his past deeds. Whether he's really attached to them, or he's like, no, I wanna be a new man, and I'd really make that clear from the beginning how he feels about what he's done in the past, and use that to frame how he's going to act going forward. That would be the number one thing that I think I would do.
That sounds so important. Wow. If only other people had had this instinct. Amazing. Therefore,
and I should say, sorry, it is easy to retcon this in and be like, look, it's obvious in retrospect. When you're actually writing and doing things, it's not as immediately obvious, and sometimes you do literally need someone to be like, why didn't he just pick up the gun and shoot the person? Like it is easy for us to sit here and pick it apart, but maybe there was something going.
Can I put that thought in a metaphor?
Sure.
It's easy to illustrate the Eiffel Tower. It's hard to build it.
There you go.
But that's why we're doing some writing 101s to think about what traits to give your crime lord. I just wanted to speculate that potentially writing a crime lord who refuses to accept tribute money, refuses to kill people, refuses to steal things, says no to drugs, despite his high-octane drug-fueled hallucination with the Tusken Raiders, doesn't want anything to do with it. You're starting to run into plot problems where you want to set him up as a crime lord, but then you're giving him traits where he doesn't want to do any crime lord things. Kind of has the potential of grinding your plot to a halt. These two things aren't in conversation, and then nothing can happen. It is interesting. I heard another YouTuber frame it well, that he spends a lot of time just wanting people to like him. He will listen to what they have to say, and they're like, oh, I would really prefer it if you did this, and he would be like, okay, I'll go do this, for no other reason. He wants their favor, but he's not an elected official. He doesn't need to shake hands. He doesn't need votes. He can just hold his power through murder, which is a skill we know he has, but he doesn't want to use it. And we don't know why he doesn't want to use it until episode 4. And he reneges all this by the end anyway. I'm just highlighting a potential knot that our first-time showrunners can potentially avoid in the future.
I gotta take you back a few seconds, because I'm just bamboozled here.
That's the right word for it.
The guy doesn't steal. No. He doesn't kill.
No, these are bad things.
Protection
he doesn't
money?
want to do that anymore. His friends died.
Does he take protection money?
No.
I don't want to sound like I'm checking him for tax evasion, but where's the money from?
He doesn't have any. It's a problem. He's got to sit around and sort that out.
Hey,
you're not a crime lord. He's just
a guy who has like a dusty seat.
You're just a guy. You're literally just a guy that people like to come talk to because they misunderstand your role in society.
That. All right. Speaking of, this does lead into my next question. Why would a D&D campaign make a bad TV show? So say you're sitting around watching your friends play D&D. You're not playing D&D. You're watching them play D&D. Okay. And potentially, sure, the improvising can be funny. Your friends might say funny things. The DM may have set up some key set pieces. Cool. But where are the weaknesses in this mode of storytelling if you're the audience?
Well, it's all improvised, like it's like, say what you want for improvisation. I've come to realize it, like, a robust plot, it does not necessarily make. Now, there might be the rare example where you can just power through something in, writing 5,000 words a day, and something will come out the other end where it's like, no, this works pretty well, and then I can just shoehorn it in. But a lot of the time, it doesn't work. You wind up fighting a space spider or a space turtle.
Space spider.
In the middle of another realm, and then a wizard did it, and that's it. It happens.
Yeah. Do you have similar instincts, Matan?
My note is mate where to start. I think that the most common misconception with a bunch of people playing D&D is like, hey, if we turn this into a show, that would be so much fun. No, it wouldn't. Okay, it would suck. It's just a bunch of idiots drinking whiskey and making inside jokes. No one wants to see that.
I love
Speaking
that you
from
said it. It needed to be said. For me to give a structured response to this, there's no true, funny enough, initiative is almost the word I want to use. Like, characters sit around and they wait for things to happen to them. They wait for the DM to throw things at them. They give them a problem, then they go somewhere, they talk to people. If they're bad at uncovering information, then the DM's kind of got to throw the information at them, being like, you've got to do this. And it starts to feel a bit contrived how you get from encounter to encounter, because it's kind of, there's a problem, you solve it, your problem, you solve it.
Yeah, passive, yeah.
Yes, very passive. So that's what I would say is like the weakness of that structure, and why it does not make a TV structure. And it can be a little bit boring. So it'd be a shame if they made a show called Book of Boba Fett that was this kind of characters sitting around, then they walk to that one bar, then they talk to some people, and then they don't quite get the information they want, so it falls out of the sky, and
it tends to lack thematic resonance as well, is the problem. There's no overarching thing. I mean, you could argue a dungeon master is leading them towards something, but the inherent nature of people deciding things within themselves, and they're going like, no, we don't want to talk to the blacksmith, we're going to go over here and like throw bottles at the wall and have the barkeep yell at us and that sort of stuff. It doesn't lend itself to an overarching thematic cohesion.
I said I wouldn't do this, but I will divert, and because it's probably the episode that annoyed me the most in Book of Boba Fett, where they needed to infiltrate this place. I can't even remember what it was, and they're like, we have a little probe droid that we're going to send in, it's going to infiltrate, and it's like 30 minutes. Half of the episode is the adventures of this little droid going in to get the information. There's like a chase scene with the droid, and then it comes back, and then ultimately they kind of like, look, we can confirm we're not going to get in that way. It was too hard, the probe was nearly destroyed. That's the culmination of this 30-minute detour, and then they're like, we're gonna have to look for another way. And then the camera pans back, because they're kind of having this conversation hidden behind some rocks as they're staring at the door they've worked out they can't get through. The camera pans back and reveals another fucking door to the right, like a side door, and then they're like, let's try that one instead.
Is that played as a comedy beat?
No.
Oh, that's
really not.
I'm sorry, that's comically terrible writing. Like, no, because if you do play that for comedy, and it's like, oh, you're kind of trying to,
maybe we should have used the other door.
It's just like, that's just so bad. It's like
it struck. That's why I wanted to use the D&D metaphor, because it just struck me as,
wow,
you're the DM and you give them a door, and they spend this whole time throwing skill checks at this one door. They can't get through, and then they're like, and they fail all their skill checks, and it's almost as if the DM goes, can you just do like an insight check like around the corner? And then they do, and then they're like, oh wow, there's actually another way into that dungeon. Is exactly how that episode played out. It was
so dumb. That's so dumb.
All right, another quick fire question. It's yes or no. Speaking of D&D, say you have a character spec'd as a fighter, or perhaps a barbarian, maybe even a rogue. That's who they are. Would it be then weird if in the climax of episode 7 they saved the day with sudden animal taming skills? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be weird. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the definition of Deus Ex Machina. That's the bat belt right there.
Very weird.
I think there's animal taming skills in all of us, and we just have to learn how to bring them out.
We might need them in episode 7 someday. Next question. You're halfway through drafting your TV show, and you're starting to notice that the other characters are overshadowing your protagonists. They're more active, more interesting. To be fair, the Book of Boba Fett doesn't really suffer from this, but in theory, say the other characters are overshadowing your protagonist. What is something you might do? And do you have an example from your own writing?
Okay. Well, I think this is a pretty common problem that a lot of writers, especially, pantsers or discovery writers, run into when they're writing things. You'll find that suddenly a side character will sort of pop out from the woodwork and be like, hey, I'm actually doing a bunch of stuff. I'm engaging in a bunch of activities. I'm moving the plot forward. And you're like, oh, okay. And there's two ways you can go about this. You can either kill them off, which is perfectly legitimate excuse.
Just take them off the table.
Yeah. Or you can kind of pitch a segment around that skill set and use that to maybe bolster a bond or a friendship between the characters, or at least provide some new light to your main character. Either that, or you can just totally respec the whole thing around this character if they're more interesting. And that's kind of a big, bold move, but it's an option. Yeah.
It is an option. And Matan, what are your instincts for this?
I agree with Alex that it does happen a lot. I think at some point the main culprit is fear, and it is the fear of your protagonist is so important to you, and you want them to be liked, that you will stop yourself from letting your protagonist have certain extreme traits that, let's be honest, they're the interesting ones. Because, what if they don't like that he curses? What if they don't like that he lies? What if they don't like that this character has a really weird hobby? So we save all of these things for our side characters because we feel safer using it with them.
That's a good point.
I think one specific type of story does call for your protagonist to be boring, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name for this, but the straight man in a crazy house, like when you got a normal character and everybody around them is loony, that's hilarious and that's purposeful, but that's not what we're talking about here.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, for example.
Yeah. And I do think it's mostly out of fear and just desperation to make your character likable, and it's usually counterproductive.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think it would be a strange decision then that if you're suffering from this instinct where you're like, oh no, my protagonist isn't really doing anything, or they're not making decisions, or they're completely unrecognizable, they have no motivation, to suddenly write 2 episodes of your show that have a protagonist from a different TV show. That would be a weird decision. So therefore,
who is it?
It's Mando.
So famously, the Mandalorian, so Pedro Pascal's character, Din Djarin, is just the protagonist for 2 episodes. And I'm not even exaggerating. He has his own plot. He does his own things. Boba Fett is not in 2 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett because Din Djarin needs to rock up and do some stuff with Baby Yoda. And what happens by contrast is we suddenly have a crazy competent character who's shooting things, which is nice. He's making decisions. He has struggles. He has relationships with other characters. And just the contrast is incredibly alarming because you suddenly like, that's what a protagonist does. And now he's here. Where was the other show we were almost watching? So I'd recommend that's probably not a solve if you're struggling to flesh out your protagonist, just bringing in another one.
Can I say, like, it, because I haven't seen this bit, like, does that work within the context of those 2 episodes? Like, as a closed circuit, is it like these 2 episodes are made better by this character, like without the context of Boba Fett?
They're just,
or is it still kind of a bit
episodes?
Yeah.
It's so
no, I'm agreeing.
Baffling. Okay, so they ultimately team up in that Din Djarin's journey leads him to Tatooine, and the final episode is the team up episode, but we get 2 whole episodes of just leading into the team up episode that doesn't feature Boba Fett at all. And Boba Fett doesn't go instigate it either. Din Djarin comes to him because he has more protagonism at this point.
Protagonism. I love that adjective.
He just stole all the protagonism. He sucked it all up.
The protagonism crystals.
More midi-chlorians if we're going there.
Yeah, he's got more midi-chlorians. He probably does.
Oh, for
Yoda's
sure,
just
man.
handing him out. Baby Yoda's just handing him out.
The camera just pans towards whoever's more force sensitive at any given time, that it just can't stay on anyone.
It's like a magnetism.
Force sensitive, yeah. All right. We're wrapping it up now. We're on to our final questions. And we'll leave Boba Fett to die in this
in the Sarlacc
cadaver.
pit
What do you call it when you carve up a cadaver? An autopsy. I feel like is what we're doing. All right, my 2 writers in my writer's room. We're talking antagonist, and we're working in a typical kind of Western shootout between a protagonist and an antagonist in the final episode. That's what we're honing towards. Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? We have 7 episodes to get there. So off the top of your head, when do we want to introduce our antagonists, And how much screen time do we want to give them to flesh them out? What's your instinct here?
Oh no.
No, what's your
I
instinct?
can see where this
I want to know.
I can
It's
see where
writing
no,
101,
I can just see
Matan.
where this is going. Did they introduce him
feel
in
like-
episode 7, Ali?
I feel like
Go
the
ahead.
classic. I feel like the classic introduce antagonist move is at the end of episode 1. That's the classic.
It's
like,
pretty classic. Good instinct.
rocks up
Yeah.
and he's like, "Yes, we have to change this." And then fade to black. You know?
I'll one
Okay.
up you. The classic introduction of the villain should be at the beginning of episode 1.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, no, that's great. That's literally A New Hope. That's literally A New Hope, right?
Yeah.
And that works a treat. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And my secondary question, how much screen time are we going to give them throughout the whole 7 episodes? When we're, well,
it
considering we've already
depends.
sold 2 to a different protagonist, we're down to 5. So
okay.
how much time in 5 episodes do we want to give our antagonist?
I feel like at least 20%.
Mhm.
That's probably a blanket thing. No, I'm going to throw it to Matan, actually. What do you reckon?
In a Western, I would
Yep.
say pretty high. Pretty
Mhm.
high. Because in a monster movie, yeah, 20-50%. I don't want to see the Meg before it's about to eat someone. But in a Western, yeah, they need to be active players, like the black cowboy, the white cowboy. It
Yep.
almost has to be parallels.
Those are the tropes.
Okay. Well, here's a fun thing. So, we've all heard the term of the heavy, and I think you guys probably know the lore of this. But the idea of the heavy is like the main antagonist, right? And the reason why they would call it the heavy is because their script would be physically the heaviest, right?
Nice.
Like that's why it would be that. So that certainly implies that he would be in it a lot. And I don't know how protagonist roles have moved around in terms of the screen time they have, but I imagine it's still a lot. Like you see a lot of what's his name? The guy in Killmonger. You see a lot of Killmonger in Black Panther, for example, right?
And the first
rightly
scene
so.
in the movie is a Killmonger scene, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, Matan, you and I should write a show. This is
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have really
got
good
opinions.
writing 101 instincts is what I'm getting at.
Aw.
So I would trust the two of you not to introduce the antagonist halfway through episode 6 and have them
Oh,
a little bit in
no.
episode 7 before the showdown.
Yeah,
I would
that's no
trust
good.
you guys not to do that. I said I would circle this back to the Clone Wars. So Cad Bane, we're talking about Cad Bane here. Cad Bane is introduced and fairly well fleshed out in the Clone Wars. And the Book of Boba Fett, for some reason, just kind of went, we don't need to give any investment at all setting him up because maybe
Everybody
a couple of
knows.
people have watched the Clone Wars, so we won't bother
Oh, yeah,
introducing him at
that's
all
lazy.
in the structure of our show. We'll just have him show up and hope people go, ooh, Cad Bane, and then they'll go straight to their showdown. And that's a poor move, I think.
Can I
Structurally.
say the antagonist, does not necessarily need to have screen time. You can do this in another way where they're referenced and they have like, okay, let's say a town's been burnt down and it, like someone rocks up and the sidekick is like, oh, this is the work of the Black Magician, you know? And it's like there's these references, or even less
I
than
do
that,
love
maybe
that.
like maybe
Yeah, you feel them.
Yeah, that's right. You feel their presence. We were talking in the monster episode about like you see the footprints, right? But so if especially in a more horrific context or a more like spooky context, that's a big thing. You feel them, but
Yeah.
they don't necessarily have to be on screen.
Okay, I love that. I love how you've tried to solve this problem for them. That they didn't do that either.
Okay.
That could have worked though if they're like, oh, there's some big bad out there pulling the strings. Is it Cad Bane? Like you could have made a whole plot over that. I see it. Instead, what they do is Boba Fett thinks he's gotten revenge on the people who killed all his Tusken friends. And then he learns all the people he murdered weren't actually responsible for murdering them. And he kind of just goes, shrug, I guess I killed all the wrong
Whoopsie.
people in revenge. Yeah, whoopsie. And then episode 7, just before the shootout, Cad Bane goes, oh, by the way, it was me. I killed your Tusken friends. And we get this information just before the shootout.
Oh, this is so... Man, is ChatGPT credited for this show?
I wish.
I'm sorry. Look,
The first
Look,
official
being a-
use of AI script writing right there. And it did
being
okay.
I just want to say, being a writer is hard. I respect all the writers out there, especially the published ones. And I'm sure there are some excellent people working for Disney. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but this shouldn't happen.
All
Come
right,
on.
I'm going to round this off with 2 final little Cad Bane nods, because I actually love Cad Bane as a character. So this was very sad what happened to him. He's literally standing over Boba Fett and he looks down at him and he goes, "Come on, man, what's your angle?" As in, the villain is literally so confused as to what the protagonist wants, doesn't know his motives. He's like, "Why are you here?
Oh,
What do you
God.
want about?" Is literally what he bends over and asks him. What's your angle? And as an audience, we're like, we're all with you, Cad Bane.
Yeah.
We don't know either. And as its final sin, both Cad Bane and Boba Fett are known as like the galaxy's best shots, right? Like they're pistol guys. They're mercenaries. They've never lost a duel before, and then they're finally dueling it out. Wouldn't it be a really silly decision to end this in fisticuffs with a space
Oh my God.
shillelagh melee stick to rob these 2 characters of their greatest skill set? Potentially that is a poor creative decision. So I will leave you on that note. I encourage all our listeners to go and actually watch the Book of Boba Fett, because I think you will come away with a really good how-to guide on not to write a series of television, and you'll come away feeling rich and fulfilled that you, even if you avoid the most basic pitfalls, you will write something really competent. And I love that.
Can we call this episode The Trial of Boba Fett?
Because
Because that's what it felt like.
it's a trial to sit through it. Yeah.
As in a trial for us, like to get through it, or a trial for him?
Let the reader decide, Let the reader decide.
Uh,
The
Okay.
listeners.
Thank you so much, everyone, letting me get that off my chest. I've been carrying this around. I needed
That was
to
heavy.
share it.
yeah. You look lighter, Ali. You look.
Thank you. Yes.
Look relieved of the burden.
After I volunteered, I realized I had made a hideous mistake, because I'm like, now I have to go and think about Boba Fett again in my preparation for this episode. I played myself. It lives rent-free in all our minds. All right. Thank you,
Now then.
listeners. If you like this episode, if you like our podcast, please leave us a review on Spotify or wherever you're listening. The reviews help our algorithms. Also, please check out the new Mythic. You can find it as an ebook, or you can order the paperback through Amazon. And we're real close to having our audiobook out soon. So keep an eye out for that.
We're doing something a bit different, right? We're doing quotes from each of us.
Yep, we're
Yeah.
all going to throw
Okay.
some very special lines from Book of Boba Fett.
So my favorite line that I just Googled online, because I haven't watched it, is "I'm not a bounty hunter, Boba Fett."
My quote is also from Boba Fett. He says, "I'm the crime lord. He's supposed to pay me." And I want to follow this up with a line from Fennec Shand, who goes, "Shall I kill him?" As we share
My lord.
her feelings, waiting for him to do something.
That's funny. And I'll round it off by quoting the classic Cad Bane line as he's standing over our protagonist, who's lost all his protagonism at this point, just saying, "What's your angle, man?" And I feel like that's how we all feel about this show at that point.
Good quotes that'll stand the test of time. This has been Ali, Matan, and Alex on Pros and Cons, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
We're waving.
You're listening to Pros and Cons, the Precipice Fiction podcast.